Welcome to the Ringer WNBA show. I'm Seerat Sohi. UConn has won its 12th title, its first since 2016. They are back on top of the basketball world in an all-around decimation of the South Carolina Gamecocks. I am joined by Lulu Kesin, former Ringer employee, current South Carolina Gamecocks beat writer for the Greenville News, making her prodigal return. How's it going, Lulu?
Good. Yeah, this is so full circle for me. A year ago, I was working for the Ringer, and now I'm here covering the national championship with you. So thanks for having me on. This is fun.
Awesome. I love it. We got to start with Paige Bueckers. Even though this wasn't, this wasn't like the Paige Bueckers game, but I think that it is such a vindication of her story that this is how this ended for UConn. Obviously, she finally wins the elusive title. She has, one of the most decorated resumes in college basketball history. Also ended up in this game passing Maya Moore for the most points in the tournament by a UConn player. And that's a list, that's a list that has Stewie on it. It's a list that has Sue Bird, Diana Taurasi on it. Just a series of legends who, she grew up admiring, dreaming of going to UConn, and, eventually got there and, felt the weight of all that pressure for a very long time up until really this season, where she learned to let go of so much of that, started to work with a sports psychologist and, dealt with so much in terms of just on and off the court, like mentally, physically, the injuries, missing 2 tournaments, making 3 Final Fours, the game against Iowa last year with the moving screen. She doesn't even get a shot off in that game. The decimation by South Carolina, which it feels like, speaking of full circle, UConn got their lick back. They definitely got their lick back.
Yeah, it's so hard to not root for Paige. She's just an incredible person and player. And it was so obvious in the South Carolina locker room that everyone was really happy for her. Like, Raven Johnson also tore her ACL, came back to win 2 national championships, but still won after that recovery. And I think it was so evident that the love that the basketball community has had for Paige, this season and her recovery and the last 2 years. And like you said, not getting a chance to even get a shot off in the Final Four last year. So it was clear that Paige, I said it from the beginning. I was like, I think this is UConn's year. It's just hard when you're bringing strong into the system that's already, to put a pun, so strong. But just with Paige and everything that she's wanted in her process. And what's most impressive is she's done so by rooting for everyone else at the same time. She's been so happy for South Carolina, who's kind of built this modern day dynasty, as she's tried to mirror what UConn did in the early and mid 2000s. And she's never been envious, jealous. She's just always wanted that to be her in the right way. And it's hard not to smile at the thought of her, walking through the basement of the arena today with the trophy in hand, because it just felt like everything came to that storybook ending for her.
Yeah, I was really moved by Geno's opening statement in the press conference, where he talks about how, he just kept thinking something good has to happen, because if we were going to lose it, it would have been before this, because he says, I don't think that the basketball gods would take us all the way to the end, because they've been really cruel to some of the kids on this team. They've suffered a lot. And they don't need any more heartbreak. And you saw Paige got a little misty-eyed when he said that. And it also, obviously, it makes you think about Azzi Fudd too, who, has been through so many injuries, had the ACL tear, could barely play in their game against South Carolina in 2022. She, bad Brussels sprouts, apparently avoid Brussels sprouts if you're going to be playing in the national title game. I don't know that was on anybody's scouting report or preparation before that. They just feel like a safe food. She was trying to get her greens, and look what happens to her. So it was great to see, especially for Azzi to have the game that she had as well. I think we were texting before, and I asked you, who'd you vote for most outstanding player? You voted Paige. I voted Strong. Azzi ultimately won it. And that just feels like the ultimate vindication of UConn's style overall, right? Like the fact that they have this big 3 again, and everybody contributed as well. Azzi and Strong both had 24 points. Paige behind them with 17. And I don't think she would have had it any other way either. And it was just really fitting. I was really happy for Azzi that she was able to have the game that she had.
Yeah, another great kid who's just done the process the right way, in my opinion. And I think, with the MVP vote, the first time South Carolina played UConn, Paige had 12 points, but 10 assists. And Azzi was the highest score. I think she had 28. And, it's easy to look at, Fudd was the reason UConn won that game. And in essence, yes. But I think that Paige's ability to recognize when it's her time to shoot versus her teammates, when you have so many people with the hot hand, it's a guard or a point guard or someone like Paige might, in that moment, feeling so much pressure to win a title in my last game, kind of mismanage the game, mismanage the offense. And I just felt like Paige was perfect in that tonight. She saw all the right things. She fed Azzi when she needed to and then didn't. And I just think that her ability to kind of run the offense and orchestrate both Strong and Fudd into things was just instrumental in how dominant the offense was as a whole.
Yeah, completely agreed. And she had, I'm going to be writing about this and it'll be out in the morning. So a little mini plug there, but she talked about standing firm being like the sort of theme of this chapter of her life. And I asked her to elaborate on that after the game. I asked Paige, and she talked about how, she started to work with a sports psychologist, but she also felt like, she was kind of being pulled in a lot of different directions in terms of being compared to a lot of different players. And then, she also is like, I feel like was kind of playing the comparison game in terms of former UConn legends as well. But, she said, there's a lot of people that can try to put you in a box, that you've got to be more aggressive, less passive, but standing firm. And I think you saw a great depiction of that tonight in terms of we did it our way. I did it my way, trusting my teammates, making the right pass, feeding off of everyone who's hot that night, and not getting outside of myself. And I just thought it was such a great full circle moment for her in this season where, she opened the season. She sat down with Mir and Fader, and talked about how this season is about her learning to go from the giver to the killer. And certainly there were moments in this tournament that required that. She scored a combined 105 points in the 3 games before they got to the Final Four that actually punched their ticket. She had the 40-point game, of course, against Oklahoma as well. And we know that Geno has been trying to push her, and it was a necessary mental evolution and encore evolution for Paige to really embrace the full capacity of her scoring ability. But at the same time, I think at her core, this is who she is. She is the giver, right? Whether it's on or off the court. You see all these stories about she's making breakfast for Jane Alfie through the course of Ramadan, or, just even her ESPY speech, just trying to deflect the credit that she got onto the black women in the league, or just the fact that Azzi is the one who won this award. I don't think Paige would have had that any other way. And I just think that and I think, what was it? UConn, I think, finished with 18 assists on 30 field goals. It was just also an affirmation of their play style as well. And in a season where I feel like Geno has also been under more fire and more scrutiny than he's been in the past. But I just thought it was really interesting and kind of I feel like there has been this sort of meta narrative. I think the popularity of Caitlin Clark has made those two players foils for each other, right? And they just are very interesting. I've compared them because I do think that on the court, it is a very interesting sort of dichotomy or whatever you want to call it between them, where you have one player who lit the league on fire with 3-pointers and passes and just making these really incredibly bold plays that push the envelope, whereas Paige is way more of an analyzer, and she's sometimes doesn't take the shot and you wish she would take it. And with Caitlin, sometimes it was she would take the shot and you'd be oh, I don't know, or the pass, and that would be the turnover, right? And both to me are just I don't think any player should necessarily be trying to be anything that they're not, and I think it's great that Paige was just able to win this way and vindicate herself in her final college game.
Yeah, absolutely. I felt like the narrative last year was just so tired. Like this idea that Paige like didn't have the dog in her, didn't want to dominate, didn't want to take over. And some of it I felt was not necessarily from Geno himself, but there was kind of
Mhm.
this weird energy that he was pulling for Paige to give more in those kind of dominant scoring positions. And the question sort of became, okay, is this a level that Paige is going to reach, her rookie season in the WNBA, or is she going to return and do it in
Mhm.
college? And I think it's another great example of, a player not declaring and deciding to come back. And I imagine it was a lot of kind of reflection and understanding, like I have room to grow. There's still
Mhm.
levels of my game that I have not reached yet. And it really did feel like this was the most, perfect way for Paige just time and time again to unlock different aspects of herself and not be in those boxes which you were just talking about. It just, I think with someone like her who's so multidimensional and can be, the giver and the killer, but still so aware of what she truly is at heart, like
Mhm.
understanding that and having that level of just self awareness almost in a basketball way heading into the rookie year versus
Mhm.
maybe trying to struggle your way through it as a rookie in the league where, let's be real, she's as Dawn Staley said, like you're gonna build a franchise around Paige regardless. She's gonna be a player that is gonna start. She's gonna have a great professional career, but at the same time, like in some ways she's walking into a league that has equal or better talent. So she might be in a box for a game. She might be in certain situations or scouted a certain way against opponents. And it's going to be so much different than how she was, year 1, 2, and 3 at UConn. So recognizing her abilities and what she possesses on her own going forward, I just think strengthens everything that she
Yeah.
already had.
Yeah, complete. Especially going to, inevitably a Dallas team. She will be the number one pick in the WNBA draft this coming week. This is a team that has Enrique on it. This is a team that has, I think her and Dejanay Carrington are also going to be such a fun defensive combination as well. Like just good luck even passing the ball on the perimeter against those two, right? And like, like the Melissa Smith like potential career rejuvenation, I think is something. I think she's somebody who could potentially um thrive there as well. It's just like it's a really good fit for her to be able to toggle between both styles. And I just think that it's kind of a seamless fit. So I'm just excited to see what happens. And we'll talk. I'll talk draft a little bit more later in the week. But I do think that you make a really good point in that it does perfectly position her now to make that transition pretty seamlessly. I feel like this almost like this was kind of what she needed. Like this whole tournament was kind of what she needed to get to that place where she's just comfortable moving between the two. And it speaks to just her wanting to be like she's talked a lot about wanting to be present. How last year she felt very angsty and was thinking about all the things that could go wrong. Whereas this year she's way more just like in the moment, grateful, present, and just trying to enjoy the last days of her college career and just, being a college kid and like doing all the stuff that you enjoy doing with your teammates and stuff. So it's just, I kept thinking about that while watching them celebrate on the side. Like that was the other part. It was like, man, like they're celebrating halfway through the fourth quarter because like this just wasn't a game. But before we switch to the South Carolina side of it, like I do, like we got to talk about Sarah Strong. I didn't realize this until I obviously knew she had a very impactful game, but like I audibly was like, holy shit, when I saw her stat line: 10 of 15, 24 points, 15 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 blocks, 2 steals. What can you say about Sarah Strong?
There aren't enough words to describe her performance, and I think it's unfortunate for South Carolina's end of things where it was like Joyce for Sarah who can
Mhm.
handle the moment as a freshman. And I'm not looking to directly pit them against each other, but I think that Sarah was able to just completely eliminate any potential confidence or momentum, or she just took
Mhm.
Joyce Edwards out of rhythm. And I point to that specifically because I think Joyce, like Asia Wilson said in February, that Joyce has the footwork and kind of the offensive improv skills that you develop your fourth year in the WNBA. Like,
Mm.
not saying Joyce, not trying to, make the boldest statement about Joyce Edwards as a freshman, but that kind of
No,
put into
no, I mean, like, there's just
perspective.
like, just briefly to cut you off there, like,
You're
she
good.
drew a block, like, Paige tried to draw a charge on her, and it was a block, like, it was a block, and I just, like, thought to myself, like, it's kind of impossible to draw a charge on Joyce, like, she's just so shifty.
Yeah, totally. And she's so smart. Like her IQ, her in-game IQ is incredible. And so it was, unfortunate on for her specifically that tonight it was just a simple result of really bad layups. But to get back to Sarah, like Sarah took a player that can basically has gone this entire year not being phased by the spotlight, not being phased by double teams, and just made her look so small. Like Sarah was making simple baskets, she was making difficult baskets. Obviously, she can hit three-pointers, but she didn't even need to do that. It just felt like what she was doing in the paint was so effortless. I wrote somewhere that it just felt like every basket South Carolina made was just through so much effort and hardship, whereas UConn was just like dancing to
Machine.
scores and just dancing into layups. And it of course it was incredible offensive execution, and I'm not taking away with that from that. But Sarah's ability to just meet the moment game after game, I'm not surprised that she, continued to do that, in her final game of her freshman year. But her ability to just take defenders out of rhythm, but also take any, dominant scorer out of rhythm was, impressive, especially because South Carolina does have a lot of depth. And Sarah
Yeah.
faced a lot of different players, and especially with Jana getting in foul trouble, she stepped up in that regard. Ice Brady picked up 2 fouls. Like it was clear that someone had to dominate the paint, and it was going to be Sarah, and she absolutely delivered.